Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Knick, your host, and also the founder of Junior Golf Hub. So again, welcome back. So this week we're going to be talking about tournament preparation, getting yourself out there, playing in tournaments, and hopefully being successful at winning some of these events. Before we get to that, though, we want to talk about COVID-19. Stay safe out there. We're safe here in the studio, staying our social distance. So again, most of you already understand that there's some travel advisories out there. So if you're going to play in tournaments, just be aware of those and the ramifications of traveling and traveling back into areas where your family are. Make sure you're just staying safe. It is great to get out there and play some golf, but just make sure that you're staying socially safe and responsible. Okay, so that's one of those things. We want to keep this interactive. Make sure that you're actually asking us some questions, sending some comments and concerns. We want to hear from you. We want to help you reach your ultimate goal, be successful in golf and also in life. So we need to hear from you. We need some feedback. So appreciate that anytime you can get that. This week's pop quiz. We've got a great prize this week. So Hurricane Junior Golf, powered by Junior Golf Hub, is going to be giving out an entry, a free entry. So make sure you register, get those answers into our pop quiz question. And that question is going to be, how many two-day events should you be playing in per season if you have a desire to play in college golf? Again, let me repeat that. How many two-day events should you play in if you have per season if you have a desire to play college golf? You're going to hear that answer as we go along in the show, so listen up, and we'll make sure that you get that free entry there. Tyler, we're talking last week, again, kind of getting in preparation, but before we go any further, let me just introduce Tyler Campbell, our Director of Performance.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Also, we have Dennis Hillman here. Well, I'm sorry, not Dennis Hillman. We have Alex Hume. Dennis is on assignment. He's actually at the Junior Golf Hub Championship in Chicopee, Mass. So we have Alex Hume here, one of our lead coaches, going to be talking about, again, tournament preparation. But before we get to this week's show, Tyler, why don't you give a recap of last week?
Thanks, Roger. So guys, again, if you missed any previous episode, they're available on juniorgolfhub.com/5elements. Last week, we're in episode 11. It's hard to believe we're that far along. But some great content in those first few episodes available on the YouTube channel. But last week, we talked about our primary fundamentals, and we wrapped those up covering speed and how important it is to develop that athletic foundation first and foremost. What attributes really go into developing a fast athlete. We also talked about club path and club face, and how to control the golf ball. So Dennis did a great job recapping all of our primary fundamentals, again, starting with ground forces, posture, both static and dynamic, rotation, speed, club path, and club face. And then we were excited to have Kyle Panic on the show. He's a nutrition coach with us and a performance coach here at GPC. Gave us some insight into how our junior golf athletes should be looking at nutrition and for performance more than anything. And we covered some basic fundamentals there on the nutritional side, which we'll get into a little bit further here today. Yeah,
and it's also a lifestyle, right? We want to make sure these kids grow up healthy, happy.
Absolutely.
And so it's really important there. But again, thanks for the recap, Tyler. This week we're again talking about tournament preparation as it relates to our 5 elements of success. Alex is going to be talking more about that as we get going here. One of the things we want to let you guys know out there, just make sure you're looking at your schedule ahead of time, so that when you're sitting down with a coach like Alex, that you have some information there to talk about. So Alex, talking about desire and talking about planning, if you will, on the player who has desire to want to go out and play in competitive golf. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So desire is our number one element here at the Golf Performance Center. And with desire comes the need for a goal. So we're looking at that end goal that the player has, whether it's maybe to play the PGA Tour, or they want to play in college, or maybe you just want to gain some tournament experience. So we break that tournament play down into levels, like a level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 being a local event to a regional event, and finally a national event.
Yeah, why is that important? Because I think that's one of the things we hear a lot of players come in and parents come in going, well, I've got to play in this event or that event, but why is it important to break it down into level 1, level 2, and level 3?
Well, it's important you play at your ability level and play with players that are of your likeness, I guess. So it's important to play at that same level, to play locally before you go regionally, and finally nationally.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good progression, because that it's hard to kind of jump from kindergarten to 12th grade. And I think unfortunately we see a lot of parents out there and a lot of players who think, hey, I got to go and play the back tees or play in this event, and they're not ready for it. And I think that's really something that we need to highlight here, is talking about playing at the appropriate level. And I know one of the things that we talk about a lot, and we've talked on I think 9 of our episodes here, is the self-assessment. I think that's one thing that you can do out there. Do your self-assessment, find out where your skills are, and then talk to your coach about what's going to be appropriate for you. So I think, again, starting with a level 1, having some success, maybe moving to a level 2 event, which is really the 2-day event, things like that, and then maybe there's some invitationals, national invitationals that are 2- and 3-day events, correct?
Right, so the level 1 is typically a 9 to 18 hole 1-day event, and then we move to a level 2, which is a 2-day event on average, and then maybe a national event is 3 to 4-day event.
Yeah, but win and compete locally if you can, and get some experiences there. And I think there's a great story out there of, I would say, a great player, Michelle Wee, who was a young player, 14 years old, kind of maybe this is what not to do, if you will. Obviously, she's been successful on tour. However, I think she jumped from being a 14-year-old young woman who played on the LPGA Tour, had some success, but never really won, and then all of a sudden wanted to go play on the PGA Tour or play at the highest levels that were quite a bit over her development or skill level. And I think it really hurt her in her career, and it took a much longer for her to kind of get to that prominence that she has gained over the last few years.
Sure, I think it's natural to want to jump to the next level once you see some success, but the reality is there's still a lot of competition at your level, probably. Unless you're just beating everybody.
Right.
So I would urge you to stay in that same level, and then and there's an issue of maybe the golf course too. Once you jump up to that level, you're playing a golf course that is longer, and it's better to stay at that level that's right for you and shoot lower scores. That breeds confidence as well. So
yeah, and I think if your ultimate goal is to play college golf, and you're looking at this and saying, well, how do I get there? And you're staging that out as kind of reversing engineering of your development. So you're able to kind of look at that and say, hey, my level 1 events is for me to gain all the knowledge and understanding of kind of what it's like to kind of just get implemented into competitive golf. And then level 2 events now start to really kind of ask more of your skill sets and development, and then you start traveling a little bit and learning how to deal with that. And then level 3 events, again, a national prominence event, means that, hey, you've probably have reached that potential college recruitment idea, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's something important to know.
Absolutely.
Now, Alex, if I'm a junior golfer, at what point throughout the year should I start planning my tournament schedule?
Well, we certainly want to start looking at that maybe even in the off season to the spring. And lay out that schedule. And a lot of the tournament schedules are maybe not necessarily released in the spring, but we can get a pretty good idea based on maybe last year's events, when they were, when roughly those are going to be, and we can plan it out, and then maybe we'll sign up for them later, but we should get a good idea. And that's going to put the ownership on that junior athlete to sign up for their events and understand what they're playing in going forward. So
I think it's important to know that, right? And you kind of think about how many events, right? So we start thinking about at what level do you start thinking, hey, do I play in 10 to 12 events, 12 to 15 events? I think that's something that we talk about a lot, is that 12 to 15 event is a sweet spot for a lot of our competitive junior golfers who ultimately desire to play that college golf.
Right, that's their goal, and the 12 to 15 numbers, what we see as a sweet spot. When we're looking at the college golf goal.
You say ownership, and a story comes to mind. Dennis Hillman, who you guys have gotten to know over the course of the series here, he's our director of coaching. He shared the story with us as coaches in a coaches meeting one day, and I think with our juniors as well, about how when he was a kid and signing up for tournaments, he wasn't signing up online, not to age him, but but he was, the registration would come in the mail, and he would have to fill out that registration form by hand, fold it up, put it in the envelope, seal that envelope, and send it back to the tournament operations, and the butterflies started kicking in for him as soon as he was sealed that envelope and put it back in the mail, because he had now committed to something, right? He knew he was going to be putting himself out there. He was going to be testing his skills, and that's nerve-wracking. And I think those butterflies are a normal part of the process. And no matter what athletic event you're undertaking, whether you're going to start a race and run and track, or a basketball game, or a soccer game, those butterflies are a normal part of the competitive process and really should be exciting. Embrace that, as Dr. Brandt's talked about in the past, and use it as a springboard.
Yeah, and he talks about awareness, and that's a big part of that, right? The number one key is having an understanding or awareness of what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I think we miss that a lot with our juniors because of the online registration. And also, maybe I'll kind of directly talk to some of you parents out there. Let the kid look at the tournament schedule and pick it for themselves. Let them sign up. You can help, but let them sign up for it. It's really important for them to feel that feedback and those feelings of, oh my God, I'm excited about signing up for this event. So I think that's one of those things that we do miss, and I know we talk about it a lot with our parents, and you sit down with the parents now and the kids and talk about tournament schedules, and you see it all the time. Parents coming in with 10 different schedules and going, I got to play in this event or play in that event, and the kid's sitting there with really kind of nothing to say, which is not how we want it to be. I mean,
right.
that's not what it should be.
Right, and Tyler, I think you nailed it. Just that it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
You sign up, and golf is a game. It's supposed to be fun. So, sign up for those events, and
own it.
Yeah, well, the fun
right.
gets sucked out of it a little bit. I think when parents start kind of going, well, I got scholarship on the line, or I don't want to embarrass myself, because they're not really signing up for these events, so they're not really kind of owning that experience, and I think that's really difficult out there. And I think, you really need to, take into consideration what that really means and when you're signing up for those events. So I think that is something that, is missing, quite a bit. And I think, a lot of our kids over the years have been successful in tournaments because they took that ownership. They were like, hey, I want to go play in this event.
Totally.
Probably like you playing travel soccer.
No, absolutely. Like, when the event's coming. I think it's really refreshing when we talk to our junior athletes and we say, hey, what are you playing in next? And they know exactly what they're playing in next.
Yeah.
When you start to get that blank stare and I don't know, I got to ask my mom. Well, essentially, you're not owning that process, right?
Yeah.
And so, we want you to be working towards, as we're going to be talking through the rest of the episode today, about the preparation process. That starts with knowing what you're playing in next.
Right, and to go a little bit further on that, college coaches know that too, because they're starting to see you at events, and they're going to ask you, hey, where's your next event? What are you playing in? And when you look at them and kind of go, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably not a good answer.
Not a good
they're kind
start.
of going, this kid must not really have any ownership or what he's doing. So I think that's something we have to be aware of, or aware of, I should say.
Sure.
Right. So, but Alex, kind of talking about that, and obviously now you've got the plan there, or you at least kind of started the plan or that dialogue of planning it out. It also kind of goes into, then it goes into the physical planning of that. Are they ready for those events, and when those events are going to take place? And I think that's from a coaching perspective. Then you kind of talk to Tyler and Kyle on the physical side and start to kind of go, hey guys, this is our tournament schedule. We need to be ready for these events, peaking at these times. So I think, maybe that's something that Tyler, you should talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our academy year here at GPC starts in September. Again, we're in the Northeast, so your schedule might be slightly different. But we spend a lot of the time in the fall and really getting into the off season, working on quality of movement, making sure that we're setting ourselves up for success to build good strength and power on top of that throughout the off season, all in preparation for that spring and summer season that's to come 6 or 8 months down the road. It takes a long time to make a physical change. It takes a longer time to feel the benefits of good quality nutrition. So waiting till the last minute to start to implement those and expecting a significant difference, unfortunately, isn't going to have the same effect on your performance as it is, in the months leading up. And that's, go back to last episode with Kyle, and he was talking about consistency. It's a lifestyle. You have to commit to, the level of effort that it takes to make a change. Both physically and and nutritionally. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those things you hear the phrase that it takes a village to have someone be successful.
Sure.
And I think that's the dynamic that you guys created here at the Golf Performance Center. Is you've got the golf coaches, you got the physical nutritional coaches, and you've got the mental coaches and the equipment guys, and that's kind of our village, if you will, to help one of these young juniors be successful. And obviously, and then you have the parent, and I think that's really ultimately important that everybody's on that same page when we start talking about competitive golf and playing at a high level of golf, which a lot of aspiring kids out there are doing, right? So, but let's talk a little bit more, Alex, about bridging that gap between practice and competition, and where we're going to go with that and how that's going to look.
Sure. So we break it down into a planning phase, a pre-event phase, a during the event phase, and then finally post-event. And as you can see on your screen, there's a laundry list of bullet points up there and examples of things that go into a successful event. So I can tell you, for everyone out there watching, if you're not paying attention to every one of these details during an event, they're all worth a fraction of a shot. So, and somebody else out there is. So if you're not doing them, somebody has a leg up on you.
Yeah, and that's really hard for a lot of juniors to understand that, because they're not seeing this. They're not really hearing this whole idea that there's so many more elements to it than just swing mechanics. I mean, again, I'm not going to beat up the golf coaches out there that just sit on the driving range and talk about swing mechanics, but that's just one component of it.
Absolutely.
There's so many things. Just learning how to travel, learning how to pack their bag, learning how to do a round warm up. Right? I mean, that's really important. And I think that's something that we really talk a lot about.
Yeah, the warm-up in particular is one that kind of irks me a little bit, I'll be honest. You look at every other sport out here on the planet, and athletes are going through a warm-up prior to their what we perceive as their warm-up. So many of us, and I know a lot of you junior golfers out there, will get to the range and you'll grab a few clubs and you might swing them back and forth while you're kind of looking around who's watching, and then you'll just start hitting balls, whether you start with your wedges or you start rolling putts or maybe you just rip drivers. But we need to prepare the body for that warm-up, physically. And so the warm-up that we use here at GPC is on your screen now. It takes about 5 minutes, doesn't require you to get on the ground, doesn't really require any equipment other than a golf club. We go through 10 bodyweight squats, overhead bodyweight squats with that club held overhead. Then we go through 10 toe touches. We go through 10 split stance torso rotations each direction, 10 split stance overhead reaches in each direction, and then lastly 10 driver swings or speed swings in each direction. And you notice I'm saying right and left. This dynamic warm-up is meant to really wake up the nervous system and prepare the body for the rigors of the golf swing in the round of golf that you're about to play. Roger, you did a pretty cool study a few years ago. A few years ago. It's back when they called it the Nationwide Tour. For those young guns, that's the Corn Ferry Tour. Then it was Web.com, and I think it was Nationwide before that. But a few of the players out there, you observed and took them through a dynamic warm-up, and then observed the performance of those who really didn't do a dynamic warm-up. And over the course of 4 rounds, I think it was 2 to 3 shots difference. And on the PGA Tour or those professional tours, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
millions of dollars over a season, right?
Absolutely. So we can't undervalue the importance of a proper physical warm-up. For those first 3 or 4 holes, you're going to have a different sensation, physically once you're carrying your bag for 2 or 3 holes than you are if you were to just go out cold. So.
Yeah. Well, another thing on that, I actually experienced this yesterday. I think I was telling you guys before that I was playing in an event yesterday, and they, due to COVID-19, the driving ranges were closed down. It was limited to how many times or how much time you had to spend there, and it was limited people on the putting green. So you really couldn't go and do your normal routine. And for me, it's normally an hour where I kind of get there, kind of loaf around a little bit, kind of get used to the the environment. Sure. And then kind of go into my normal warm-up, which is a physical warm-up. And here I was 10 minutes prior to my tee time doing my physical warm-up, and I had one of my playing partners said, "What are you doing? Why aren't you hitting balls? You got to rush down and hit balls." And I'm kind of, I already know how to hit the golf ball. I just got to get warmed up.
You're not going to figure that out in 10 minutes.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's probably going to make it worse because I'm going to be rushing. My tempo is going to be off. So to me, I think when you're out there, it's really important that you understand what a good warm-up is and why it exists. And really, it's to prevent some injuries.
Absolutely.
Get the nervous system going, and hopefully have better results over time because you've done the things consistently, and that blood flow really helps with feel when it comes to putting and chipping.
100%.
So I think that's really important. But Alex, kind of going back to the golf side of things and preparation for that, and you're now coaching pre-tournaments, if you will, and you've got kids out there and ready to go, and they're signed up for their events. Talk about what you would do from a coaching perspective, pre-events. Maybe it's a couple of weeks out, maybe it's a month out. What does that scenario look like?
Sure. So it doesn't start the week of or the Friday of that event. We start, say, a month before or weeks before, looking at the golf course before we even get there, for one, whether it's Google Earth or there's some other apps out there that have good measuring devices built in and that kind of thing. So we're taking a look at the golf course, planning. We look at things like where are our lines off the tee, what are approach shots into the green, where do we want to miss, that type of thing. So we're planning that out before we really get to the golf course, and we visualize as well.
Yeah,
So
I think that's important. I think it's also important to understand, now, this is another reason why we talk about only having between 12 and 15 events a year, because you want to be prepared to play your best in those events, right? I think what happens quite often, with players and parents, is that you're playing almost every day. Kids are playing; they're out there with their club or at the the driving range or whatever, and then they go play in an event, and then they go play in another event, and they lose that perspective of actually preparation. And they think just playing is preparation. I would say to a point, maybe younger, as the kids are much younger and just kind of getting acclimated to the game. Yeah, go play as much as you want. But there's also that scenario where, hey, you're starting to really prepare to play for value, meaning that, hey, I'm looking for that college opportunity. That means that I need to be ready to go play in this event that I've signed up for and I've put some effort into. And I think to your point earlier is like, all the little things that go into tournament preparation, it requires time, and it requires that focus of doing these things well.
Right.
And I think that ultimately ends up in a better result if you actually do that.
Right. And some of this might be for the advanced player, but we still fail to see a lot of that happen at that older age too.
Yeah. Well, it's learning, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we talk about, as your lead coach here for our fundamentals and learning to play group, it's like, yeah, you want them to go play and you want to encourage them and inspire them to go out and enjoy the game. But enjoyment comes, that pressure of, success, right? And maybe it's not, what we talk about as success, but maybe it's what a parent would, consider success, whether they're winning the 8-year-old division of U.S. Kids or whatever the local Met PGA is, right? So I think it's not just our input, it's others' input that really kind of influences what these kids or how they actually approach the game. And I think that's really important that we start to, talk about more, of those outside influences when it comes to tournament prep, and how important it is to maybe you have a coach. I know in soccer, we're talking about this, in football, parents aren't telling the football coach, hey, how to prepare for a tournament or a game, right? Or a soccer coach. I mean, it's kind of amazing how in golf, it's really easy for parents to kind of move in there and say, hey, you know what, you need to do this, and where the coach is left kind of going, well, I think we've got some experiences here that may help. But it's really tough as a coach, though, right?
It is. It's a little bit of a different animal. It's an individual sport. It's a little bit different than that team atmosphere, but in a lot of the ways it should be the same. So
yeah. Well, listen, you're going to be playing high school golf. That's a team. You're going to play college golf. That's a team. And yeah, you're an individual on a team, but you got to fit in and you kind of got to mold to that a little bit. But
totally.
So going forward on planning and for tournaments, so you've got a couple weeks out. You've got the Google Earth. You got your game plan. Now you're kind of a week, maybe 2 weeks out. What are you doing now in practices? How do you kind of bridge that gap from practice to competition?
So now that we know what golf course we're playing, there could be factors that play into that. So we're looking at, maybe you're playing a golf course that has a lot of elevation change. We're in New England, right? Why not practice shots off uphill slopes? That would probably be a good idea.
Right. You mean you wouldn't want to hit every shot flat?
Yeah. So let's not sit on the range on that flat surface and practice that way.
Yeah. Different bunkers, different sand, right? I mean, I know one of the things here at the Golf Performance Center, we have, kind of native sand to the area, but then we also have a USGA spec sand or bunker that kind of gives you a different consistency. Knowing that is important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's really good. Now, what else, so ball flights and different things that you would talk about, kind of preparing for the golf course, maybe the more advanced player, you're probably talking about, working different shots or what you see based on, the mapping the golf course out.
Sure. So approaches to the green, where do we want to miss? What type of shots do we want to hit? Lines off the tee, like I said. So there's a lot that goes into it. Maybe it's a golf course that you're not hitting so many long shots off the tee. We're looking at hitting those landing areas that are wider and that type of thing.
Yeah, and being out there and seeing that in a practice round is really important to understand, like, those different kind of strategy, pieces of this, right? And I know, well, one of the things which I like is we don't allow players to score or kind of keep score during practice rounds. Why is that important?
Well, that's one thing we see a lot, is keeping score in a practice round. But the reality is we're not playing that day. We're playing over the weekend, let's say, and if we're playing for a score, we're not practicing the other shots that we might see during that actual competition round.
Yeah.
So you know, you got to be hitting a lot of short game shots around the green from spots you may end up in, maybe some spots off the tee you may end up in.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, I hear a lot of players say, "Oh, I played great in the practice round." Well, it's hard to follow that up, you know, during the tournament days.
Yeah, so that's some expectations that you're setting on yourself that you probably don't even realize. And
raises expectations, exactly.
Yeah, so they miss one shot, and all of a sudden it's like the round's over because they didn't do that yesterday in the practice round. What do I do? You know, we've all experienced that, I'm sure. You go out there and you have this great day of ball striking, and then all of a sudden it falls apart. But that kind of thing, it makes me think about a story of Michael Phelps, and you know, when he was in the Olympics, and I forget which one, it was Beijing or one of the last ones he was in, but you know, he was talking about his scenarios and how he visualized all of his races. So his practice, you know, and his competition preparation is so intense that he does so many things kind of from a visual standpoint, but he also measures out every stroke, every flip, what the timing is. But he dove into the pool. I guess his goggles got full of water. He couldn't see. And so he now swam this race, kind of just hoping to finish the race. And when he was done, he looked up and he realized that he not only, you know, finished the race, but he had won the race. And he not only won the race, he actually, you know, won the gold medal and set a world record, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. It's kind of what we're just talking about with, am I prepared, right? And you know, something bad went wrong. But he does those scenarios. He goes through and visualizes all these scenarios about what might happen, so he's prepared for it. And I think that's something that we talk about with our junior golfers often.
We do.
We always say the 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents poor performance, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about last week a little bit.
A little bit.
That's with nutrition, right? You want to full
Absolutely.
out. You know, so and that kind of gets us into the equipment aspect of this. So again, not only, you know, going from a coaching perspective and understanding how ball striking is and getting the ball in the hole, but now you got to have the right equipment. What are some of the equipment checks that you would have?
Sure. Well, we look at the golf course again. Does the equipment fit the golf course, and what type of shots are you going to be hitting? And then I would look at wedges is a popular one too. You know, the bounce on the wedges have to fit the condition of the golf course as well, whether it's soft or firm conditions. So.
Yeah, and I know on the screen there, the audience is seeing a checklist that, you know, we go through with our players when we're, especially you're traveling, you're going to be on the road, you got to make sure that you're actually having everything you need. You know, I haven't, you know, always had everything in my bag that I needed. I mean, you know, I know a few years ago we had a situation where one of our top junior players shows up to the tournament, doesn't have his golf shoes.
Right.
Now, not only doesn't have his golf shoes, it's raining, and he doesn't have his rain, you know, suit on. And you know, the parents are calling me saying, "Oh, you got to go get him golf shoes." I said, "No, you know what? That's his fault. He needs to learn. This is a lesson he needs to learn. Go out and play in his tennis shoes.
There you go.
Right, and go out and get wet and see what it feels like. You know, and guess what? That kid in 7 years haven't done that again.
He's not going to,
you know.
leave
So
his shoes
I think
at
it's
home
really
again.
important. Again, you know, parents, you know, you need to let the kid experience these things and let them take ownership of this process, because they will learn very quickly when they fail at this how to succeed, you know, in the future. So take a look at that equipment checklist. It's really extensive. You know, it's not just about the clubs or the golf ball, but there are so many other things there for success built into that.
Be prepared for that event. You know, don't be racing around Friday trying to go to the store and buy some of those things you need. So
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we also have, you know, some of the physical stuff that, you know, you know, I know we talk about, you know, your preparation, you know, throughout, but, you know, game day, afterwards, recovery. You've got 2-round event, you got a 3-round event, the recovery aspect of this. Give us a little bit more there, Tyler, on what you see. It builds confidence when they're ready for this.
Absolutely, and you know, Kyle talked last week about some mid-round nutrition, pre-round, mid-round, and post-round actually. So if you want that more detail, go ahead and check last week's episode out. But you know, preparing with proper hydration, also some good on-course snacks, and then making sure you get a good solid post-round meal, high in protein, high in carbs, so that you're prepared for the next day is very, very important. Again, the nutrition aspect of this is a lifestyle. It's a commitment. It's not just, all right, it's Thursday, I've got a tournament on Saturday, let me start eating well. Unfortunately, you're a little late to the game there. So, you know, I think there are definitely some particulars about your tournament weekend that we want to nail. And I would say, you know, in between rounds, getting adequate rest, maybe some foam rolling, making sure some of those tight spots are worked out, in addition to some good solid nutrition and hydration, should be setting yourself up for success for the next day. I think we talk about general preparedness physically, and working our way from 1-day events to 2-day events to maybe even some 3-day events. In college, you're walking 36 holes in 1 day. Yeah. That's taxing, and so we want to make sure that physically we're our level of performance. I was almost going to slip and say our level of fitness. Our level of performance is high enough where that's second nature. We're not thinking about it. We're good to go, and I can put all my attention and energy into my golf game, and my body's going to be there to hold me up.
Tyler, I'm going to go back and I'm going to push you on that fitness and performance, and why we talk about performance and not fitness, because it's a distinct difference between what these athletes are trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish from a coaching perspective.
I think again it comes down to our goal, right? So we want to perform at a high level. That's why we're presenting this show to you guys. We want you guys to have the best success out there on the golf course, and all of these factors go into performing well. Having certain levels of fitness, may coincide and overlap, but everything that we're talking about physically is really to make sure that we're performing best. And whether or not I've got that six-pack for my beach vacation this summer isn't necessarily a concern to me.
Yeah, and I think that's important for everyone to know, because it is a distinct difference between, hey, I'm fit and I go out and I can perform well at different levels. So very important. Yeah, I appreciate that, Tyler. Yep. Clarifying that fitness versus
a little difference.
Yeah. So in conclusion, with the golf side of things and preparing from practice to play, it's the mental side of the game, right? So what are you guys talking about mentally, if you will?
Well, we look at the mental game as one of our elements here at GPC. Before we get to the golf course, we visualize actually going through and playing a round of golf, which is hugely important, I think. Going through each shot, playing that in your head, coming up with a game plan for that tournament. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think the visualization and being prepared mentally is really I don't want to say the end-all be-all, but I think most people don't, because they play so often, they don't really get themselves mentally prepared to play their best in events. Again, I think it's really important that they get themselves up for that 12 to 15 event, kind of schedule, and saying, I'm ready for those events and I've prepared really well, and I think they'll have better success with that.
And ultimately, just being prepared in general puts you in a better mental state. Anxiety is down, confidence is higher.
Yeah.
Chances are you're going to perform better that way.
Yeah, well, we talked. Dr. Brandt was talking a few weeks ago. Yeah. Confidence is the number one common denominator of the best players out there, or best performers.
Absolutely.
And so having that confidence is key, and preparation is key to get better confidence. So I think if you guys can learn anything today, is making sure you're prepared to have that your best confidence when you go out there to play.
We also look at routine before you go out and play. What you do there to prepare for the round. That has a big impact on the mental state before you hit that first tee shot, with some of those nerves too. We see a lot of pre-round routines where there's a routine there, but there isn't a routine there, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going through the motion, but what are you actually doing to prepare for that round of golf? So are you actually hitting shots on the range, not searching for a golf game before the round? Are you on the putting green and actually learning green speed by doing drills and challenging yourself? Say you're doing a ladder drill before you go out.
Yeah.
That's going to help you learn some of those things you need for the round, versus, let's just go through the routine because it's what I should do, right?
Right. Yeah. They just kind of go through it. They're not present for it, and it's really important to be present doing their routine.
Sure.
Yeah. So listen, that's some great information. Hopefully everyone out there got some stuff between practice and bridging that gap to going out and playing competitive golf. So we're going to be following up next week with more tournament preparation. Also, we're going to bring back in doing a equipment check-in, making sure that your equipment's in mid-season kind of form, if you will. So that we're going to be talking about that next week. But right now, I think, Andrew, we have some questions coming in.
Couple great questions from the audience. The first is, what is a good thought process for your junior when they start to hit a few bad shots during their round?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, if you go, we go back to the preparation process, and we all hit bad shots. I know, but hey, the more we're prepared and understand we've hit that shot before, we know how to get that back on track, and
I think the
hopefully
key
you
is
do,
sticking to
but-
your process, right? I mean, it's really just ultimately sticking to your process and believing that, hey, the next shot is going to be your best shot too. So, good question.
Great. Does playing in a specific tour or tours project the success of a junior player?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I would say no. I think we hear it all too often that if you play in a certain tour, every tour has its own prestige. The reality is, as we said earlier, is you're playing in level 1, level 2, level 3 events. The idea is to play your best, not compare yourself to anyone else, but get out there and play the golf course for what it is, how it's set up, and do your best. So ultimately, college coaches, or if you're going to reach the ultimate level, has nothing to do with what tour you played on as a junior. It really has everything to do with how you prepared yourself to be your best later on. And I think the more success you have younger, and you have a process in place that allows you to continue that growth, I think you'll find yourself very successful in putting yourself in the right positions to play at those places you want to play, if it's a prestigious school, golf school, or a prestigious academic school.
Excellent. And what is a good, should I only play in tournaments that only have ranking points?
Oh, that's another good one. Again, absolutely not. I think players are in different spots throughout their development. I would make sure that you're playing events that fit, again, your skill level. I'll say it again, if you don't know where that is, take the self-assessment, go to the Junior Golf Hub, take the self-assessment, find out where you are in your development. I think you'll find some appropriate, go back to your coach, ask them what would be appropriate fits for you from a tournament schedule standpoint.
I would say too, the ranking is just a number. There's so much information left out of what the ranking entails, and I think actually back to the self-assessment or the PDI in general, it allows the college coach to get insight into who you are as a golf athlete, not just necessarily tournament performance. That's one third of it. But there's more to the piece, more to the puzzle there than just your number.
Yeah, and that's great Tyler. And we've also seen a lot of players go on that play college golf that weren't ranked in the top 1,500. So rankings, I think a lot of college coaches are starting to realize that it's great as a kind of a barometer, if you will, to find out, or a filter, but really it's more to it than just getting a ranking. And I think that your success isn't determined by the ranking. Any other questions?
That's all the questions we have today.
And you only messed up once on that. That was great. Well done. So we had a pop quiz. So we had the question was how many two-day events per season you should play in if you're aspiring to play college golf. We had some answers coming in. So did we have we picked someone out of the hat yet?
Yes, the winner is Kate Nyers.
Kate Nyers, all right, Kate, well done.
Kate.
So she had the answer 12 to 15.
She did.
Awesome, well done, Kate. Congratulations and good luck in the event. So, guys, again, great show, great information. Hopefully, you out there, got a lot from this show, and again, bridging that gap from competition or from practice to competition. So, we're really excited sharing that with you, Alex. Thanks so much for sharing on the coaching side of things. Next week, again, we're going to continue a little bit more discussion on tournament preparation and what that means, especially if maybe you're playing at a higher level event, and is there a difference in that preparation? Also, is it time for an equipment check-in? So just making sure that your equipment is what it needs to be in your bag. So make sure it does change over time. So let's make sure we get a good equipment checkup. We'll probably have Nick Novak coming on and just talking about updating some equipment information. So again, thanks to our sponsors, Junior Golf Hub. Make sure you're downloading the app. Put those coaches in your pocket, those schools. Do your research. Connect with a college coach out there that you're hopefully desiring to play at. So make sure you get that app downloaded, the Junior Golf Hub. Also, Ethan Allen Preparatory, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. As always, get after it. Enjoy your journey.